What is the real value of your business today? You're going to find out. What's up, FlowChat fam? Hey, Chris here, CEO, co-founder of FlowChat.com. And we're talking to real entrepreneurs that are getting real results. Today's no exception. The guest today is one you're going to absolutely love because while we spend so many hours and time and labor building our businesses, selling our product and service, in exchange, we get X amount of value back. The actual true value of all this time and effort and labor is the value of our businesses themselves. Either we're growing an asset that will change the legacy and trajectory of our family for generations, or it won't. But there's certain things that you can do. In fact, there's a couple keys that you can do to make sure that becomes your reality and not just some fairy tale that other people get to experience, which is why we brought on today's guest, Allen. Allen, how's it going, my friend?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome, man. I'm as I told you before we got started, I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna love this conversation because I selfishly want to know. And I didn't get to share this with you, but we built and sold our first software company November 15th, 2019, and it was an
Nice.
accident. We didn't know as we are getting into it, we realized, this is SaaS. What is SaaS? Software as a service. We didn't know this. Oh, there's a great multiple to these type of companies, but we didn't understand business valuation. We didn't understand multiples. We didn't understand how to properly establish the value of our business. So everyone listening, watching today, I know is going to get a lot of value from you because this is your domain. So I appreciate you coming on to share with us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So let's start with this. How did you even get into this path? Like, why mergers and acquisitions? Why M&A?
So I'll take you back a little bit further. I left corporate America in 2008 because I just couldn't do it anymore. And I became a digital marketing consultant and a fractional CMO. And I did that from 2008 to right until the pandemic hit. And when the pandemic hit, I decided to redefine myself and my business pretty much like everybody else. And I
Mm.
saw an ad on Facebook. We're all marketers, we know what that's about. And it basically called me out. It said, "Hey, have you been building other people's businesses but haven't built any wealth for yourself?" Now, that's not exactly what it said, but
But
that's
that's
what it
what you
said to
heard.
me. That's what so I dived head first. I bought everything this guy had, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna buy a business. I'm gonna consult for equity. I'm gonna do what I need to do. And I found out really quickly that most of the businesses that are trying to be acquired or want to be acquired are not truly qualified to be acquired. So then I went out and got my certified exit planning advisor like designation, so I wouldn't just be some guy that bought a course. And I spent the last year and a half marketing myself, building a podcast, building all these different marketing assets and content to let people know what I do now.
It's amazing. So you went the ad gotcha, and here you are today. You went down the rabbit hole. Okay, so but I mean, when you get into like digital marketing or the kind of this online entrepreneur space, like usually it's not always about like building and selling and buying companies. So I mean, people go all kind of affiliate direction, software, all kinds of directions. So why this direction for you?
Well, for me, it's about something bigger, right? Because you can have money, but how much value does that money have if you have to work for it all the time? Right? If you're an affiliate, yes, you can put it on autopilot and you can just basically do the whole money gun thing. And that seems nice and all, but are you really truly affecting anybody's life with that? Because
Mm.
the other thing for me is I only was able to impact maybe 4 or 5 clients at a time as a fractional CMO or digital marketing consultant, whichever way you want to put it. And I said, there's got to be a bigger and better way for me to deploy the knowledge that I have and have a larger impact than just working with 4 or 5 clients. And that's what it's about for me now.
Okay. Well, so yeah, I kind of hear you like implying scale, like being able to serve more clients. Are you referring to like building like a course, or are you like what's that scale path look like?
So it's not so much about courses, it's about impact and legacy for me. And the reason that's such a big deal is I'll go back to some family stuff that went on. So my mom passed 2 years ago and she was an employee all her life, but she told me that I was like destined for something special, which was what you expect most moms to tell you, but I truly took it to heart. And when she passed, she only left, a few $1,000s, like maybe 20 grand. And that was her way of leaving a legacy. And I
Mm,
looked at it and I said, well, she told me I was supposed to do something special, and I don't want to leave my family with only 20 grand. I want to do something bigger.
mm.
And I realized very quickly that the biggest game you can truly play, like you can do marketing and you can affect change and all that. But if you're really playing the game at a large level, all the big players are involved in mergers and acquisitions. If you look at Coca-Cola, if you look at Mark Zuckerberg, if you look at the Google guys, like all of them are involved in mergers and acquisitions. And if you're really playing the game at a high level, that's the only game to really play.
So you had this moment, this epiphany, and you realize bigger impact for you isn't necessarily like amount of people, but it's more depth with the people that you're in contact with. And the vehicle to accomplish this is merger and acquisition because this is, that step up or maybe a few steps up of legacy that you want to create. Okay, cool. Like that. Am I hearing this correctly?
Yes.
Right on. Okay, so mergers and acquisition, you get to this place where you're like, I'm going to do the thing, but where did you get the skills to do this? Because like it's not, this was something that you didn't know of and you weren't aware of, and then you started pursuing. So, how did you acquire the skills?
So it's very similar to what I was doing in marketing, because the biggest thing that people miss about their business is operations, right? Because you can
Mm,
market, but if you don't have a proper culture in place, whether it be your employees or your customers, you're screwed. And if you don't have the proper operations in place to make sure that you can truly scale up and coast a little bit so you don't have to work so hard, then that's what you need to be doing in any business. So for me, it wasn't so much that I needed to learn so much. I mean, I learned a lot from the courses, and I was on all the calls, and I did a lot of different interactions. But the biggest part of education for me came from talking to different people who wanted to sell their business. I've had hundreds of seller meetings at this point. So people that want to sell their business talk to me all the time, whether that be one on one, whether it be at an event that I'm hosting, or whether it be a podcast that I'm on as a guest or my own podcast. I'm talking to these people all the time. And I learned so much just from talking to people about where they are and where they want to be. So I took my marketing mind and I took my operations mind and I said, okay, well, now that I know this stuff, let me see if I can help some people.
got it. So let's get into what that conversation's kind of like. So everyone listening, watching can kind of benefit. They can self-evaluate how valuable is my business, and if it's in that ripe spot, what do I do next? If it's not there yet, what are the things that I need to be thinking about and doing over the next 1 to 5 years to get it into the place that I want it to be? I think you alluded to having like a process or a framework to help
Right.
think through this.
Yes, so there's four steps. So step one is standard operating procedures. Now, when I say that, everybody knows what it is, but most people roll their eyes. They're like, "Oh my God, I've heard of SOPs. I either have them and they're really good, or I don't have them and I don't tell anybody, or I try to fake like I have them, but I really don't." Right? But in order for your business to have transferable value to someone like myself or my other colleagues, we need to have standard operating procedures in place, because if we don't have SOPs, we're not going to buy your business for the most part, right? There's actually one young lady that if I said her name, most of you guys would know who she is, but she specifically says no SOPs, no sale. She won't buy your business. So that's the first step. And I'll go through all the steps and then we can kind of talk back to them.
Break them down.
The second step is succession planning. Succession planning actually has two parts to it. The first part in succession planning is someone else going to be able to take over your business? Meaning, can you walk away for 2 weeks, throw your phone in the ocean, and actually have your business still be there when you get back? That's the first part. The second part of succession planning is personal planning. If I buy your business on a Friday afternoon, but you have no idea what you're going to do on Monday morning other than go to Vegas and blow it, then you're probably not ready, right? So that's the two parts to step two of succession planning. The third step is business operation, not business operation, business financials. Your financials have to be in order. I don't want you to go over to QuickBooks and just pull me a P&L and give it to me. I don't want your compiled statements. I want your statements reviewed, specifically either reviewed or audited by a CPA, because that way I know that the books aren't cooked, so to speak, and that way I can truly give you a real value on what your business is actually worth. You'd be surprised. Like there's probably I posted something about this on LinkedIn the other day, and excuse me if it's not exactly right, but 80% of people that own businesses don't have their financials in the proper order. And if your financials are not in the proper order, no investor is really going to want to buy the business because you're negligent, right? So that's step three. And then step number four is the hardest part for most people. Like if you run in the same circles that I do, like with investors that buy businesses all the time, it's going to be very easy to sell your business. If you don't, then you probably won't. And step four is finding the right buyer. There are several ways that you can exit your business. It can be from a sale to a third party. It can be a management buyout. It could be an employee buyout. It could be a partner buyout. If you get really big, you can do an IPO. Like there's a lot of different ways you can do it, but most people are not educated on the ways that you can potentially exit your business. So that's the four steps that I have.
I love it. All right, so we've got the framework, the four steps we need to focus on. The first being SOPs. What I've heard a couple different things on this. One, I'm definitely more, just to throw it out there because I know someone listening, watching. There's some visionary out there. You're passionate, you're creative, you find a way to rally people and resource and bring idea into reality, putting together a company, and so that's cool. But if you don't have system structure and operations, you'll wear yourself thin and it'll crumble and not work. I may know this from personal experience. Uh, but all this being said, SOPs, one best practice of implementing them is whatever you're doing, record your screen, like loom.com. Just record what you're doing. And then a lot of times having like that executive assistant or team member write down the steps from the Loom video that was made. That it requires no additional time. You're able to just do what you normally do, but record the screen. But you've now started the duplication process. That was one cool example of an SOP. Are there, I mean, have you heard that, or are there any other examples that you recommend of getting quality SOPs in place?
Well, that's the best way. My recommendation is to not have the owner actually doing the SOPs. You want to have your employees doing the SOPs. Now, granted, if you're the only person in your business, then that's where it has to start. But ideally, the way that you do it is exactly how you explained. And I'm looking at my template that I put together here. The way that I would do it, or the way that I would suggest that people do it, let's say you have at least five employees in your company and it's you, there's no middle management, it's just you and five employees, which is usually what most marketing agencies kind of like look like. The way that you would do this, you would have a team meeting and you would tell people, look, we're going to standardize how we do things. I'm going to hand you this piece of paper or this Google Doc or whatever it is, and I want you to list out your daily tasks and I want you to tell me what the steps are to performing these tasks. Right. So you have people do that. You go through that process. You come back to a second meeting and you start looking over what everybody's done. And then you say, okay, now we've got a process. Let me champion one of you because I certainly don't want to do this as the owner to really systemize this thing, put it all together, bring it back to me in like this booklet so that I can then look over it. That's the way. Like if you're thinking like a true business owner, you want to give people the opportunity to do their best work. And undoubtedly, there's probably of your five employees, there's probably one that's like the shining star. You give them that opportunity to kind of prove to you that they are that shining star. They end up becoming your middle manager, so you don't have to do so much interacting with your employees. Not that you don't want to, but you shouldn't need to. So that's the way that I would approach doing SOPs.
Got it. I mean, so you mentioned Google Doc. Is there like a wiki or, any like best practice you have for where to store them, where they're accessible?
Yeah, you can put them in a Google Doc. That's probably the easiest way to kind of start it. Put it in a folder, put it in a drive, make sure that you have it. There's other systems like you can use Asana, you can use Trello, but I probably wouldn't use those to start. I would start off very simple, very basic, just putting it into something like Google Drive. And there's another system that I can't think of. I've got the book here, but I don't have it in front of me. There's another system that you can actually put it into, like it's a system of systems. And I would use something like that as you grew your company and elevated your staff.
Got it. Love it. All right, let's go on to bullet point number two. I think you said
Succession.
what? Yeah.
Yeah. So the first step to succession planning is making sure that you can do what I call the 2 week vacation test, meaning you can walk away from your business, throw your phone in the ocean, not answer Slack messages, DMs, text messages, phone calls, nothing, and you still have a business when you come back. That is the true test of you having a succession plan, meaning that someone else can handle this while you're not there.
Got it. Okay, so what I heard you say is, you have an excuse now to book a 2-week vacation,
Yes.
and that's, the true test, like you throw the phone in the ocean, meaning there's no communication throughout the days, the weeks. Maybe there's like a flare gun, like text process or something where it's like, actually, you kind of need to like, okay, you didn't pass the test. You already failed. You should hear
Right.
about it sooner than later kind of thing. And okay, so, but that would be true succession is being able to step away. I'd imagine after you do that, you can step away for maybe a month. I don't know if you need to be away 2 months, but at least 4 or 5 weeks is probably like, all right, we really got things rolling.
Hmm.
Cool. All right.
That's the test of being it, because you have most owners and even these agency guys like myself, like we're control freaks, right? So we want to control every aspect. So even if somebody else can do it, we always want to be like looking over their shoulder to make sure they're doing it right. And that's not the best way to live as a business owner, in my opinion.
It seems a little stressful. Do you in succession plan, is that like bringing up in your mind, is that like from a business valuation standpoint, is that like, oh, founder, co-founder has a CEO in place, and so like when someone's buying the company, like they're you know basically paying for they're buying that team as well, or is it just having middle management, like in just some clarity around titles on succession plan.
Right. So the ideal situation, the most ideal situation for any investor is to be able to come into a business and be the visionary, to replace the visionary, but still have all the people doing the work. So let's just say you got a C-suite. You probably don't need five people in your C-suite, but you need at least a CEO, you need a
Yeah.
CFO, and you probably need a CMO or COO, which can probably function as one person, right? So if you got those three people and each of those people have their teams, then all the work is being done, right? That's the kind of business that an investor wants to buy, because now you have transferable value. Now, some people get caught in this whole title thing of, I'm the CEO, I'm the CEO. But once you exit the CEO role, now you're different. You're not like every other business owner that has to
Hmm.
be involved in the day to day. When you can pull yourself away from the day to day and be okay with that personally, like inside, where you don't have to look over people's shoulders, now you're what I consider a true business owner. And if you've got the other part of your succession plan together, meaning that you know what you want to do with your life because you've taken a couple of these 2 week vacations and tested it, now you're ready to kind of exit the entire business.
Love it. Love it.
And the answer to the other question is, does that make your business more valuable?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
of course. Yeah, I think there's some people listening and watching this and being like, "Oh my gosh, that can happen. That'd be amazing." And there's a smaller percentage being like, "Yeah, it is amazing. You should do it." Like they've already accomplished the deal. All right,
Right.
let's hit number 3, man.
Lesson three is financial. So you got to have your historical record. So I alluded to this before, but I kind of talked about it really quickly. Now, I would imagine that you're not taking cash from people, or you don't have just your Stripe account. And if it gets banned, you're screwed, right? Like, let's go to that level before we go into the higher level of your, what documents you need. It's
Okay.
important that you have some safety. Now, a lot of people, especially in the digital marketing agency space, they sell courses, they sell programs, they sell events, they sell masterminds. But if you're and I'm using Stripe because I'm just using that because I know everybody knows what it is. But if
Yeah.
you're Stripe, like if I say this to you and you're like, then you know you've got a problem. If your Stripe account got banned today, what would happen to your business? If you can answer that question without going, then you're okay. But if it sends you into like a tizzy, then you've got a problem, right? So you need to have more than one merchant account, obviously, right? That's the very first thing. Now, if we start to talk about what an investor wants to see from you in order to be able to evaluate your business, now we may not need every single one of these items, but it's good for you to have them, stacked up properly so that if we do ask for them, we'll be able to get them. So the first thing is your P&L, which is also called your income statement. We need 3 years of historical financials. It's the first thing. We need balance sheets, right? And I'm not going to get into explain exactly what each of these are because you can look it up on Google. But what we need is the balance sheet. The balance sheet, the way that we like to see the balance sheet is we like to see it 2 years. We don't need 3 years, but we want them to be at least 30 days old. So between, let's say today is 2/29. So we want to see your balance sheet from, let's just say, 2/14 this year, 2024, and 2/14 2023. So we can see side by side what's going on in the business. So we started off with P&Ls, then we talked about balance sheets. The
Hmm.
next thing we want to see is your cash flow statement. Most business owners are going to try to hide this from us because they don't want us to know where the cash is going. But if we don't know where the cash is going, then it's probably not likely that we'll buy the business because we know that you're hiding stuff from us, right? So we got income statement, we got balance sheet, we got I didn't say bank statements. I'm sorry. What was the third thing I said?
Cash
Income
flow?
statements, balance sheets, cash flow statements. That's correct. Then we would also want to see bank statements. Okay. So and then we want to see tax returns. So if you've got all five of those things, and if we said, hey, we want to see any of these things, you'd be able to pull them from your drive or your Dropbox or whatever, and you have them all stacked up for the last 3 to 5 years historically. Now we know that you're running the business properly. If you need to run around and try to pull this and pull that, and it's all over the place. But if you've got that stuff organized properly, it shows us as investors that you're running the business properly, and we don't have to worry about what stuff we might uncover in due diligence, which means that we probably won't do the deal because we found something that we didn't find when you gave us the records initially.
So a couple key takeaways from what you're describing, Alan. One simple thought is just quality and clear thinking. Quality and clear thinking. Here's the analogy I recently heard. Maybe some would identify with this. It's like, oh, I'm not a great writer. I'm not a great writer, but I have the right ideas. And it's like, well, if you're not writing, like, there's different styles of writing, but if you're not
Mhm.
able to articulate thought clearly through writing, it's probably because you're not a clear thinker. And that one got me a little bit because I was like, oh, he's right. And there was this guy, he was another well-established business owner, multiple exits, yay for him. And I was like, that's a good point. I would be somebody when I went to go write, my first chapter in this anthology book that I was doing years ago. I was like, oh my gosh, this is a disaster. Like, I know what I'm trying to say. I know that it's valuable because I lived it, but the way that I'm articulating it is a mess. Well, so why am I bringing this all up? What you're describing is clear thinking, which leads to clear action when it comes to leading and driving a business. And if the numbers of your business are not telling a simple and clear and valuable story, that's the real story. Your
Mhm.
thinking isn't great. So this is the way I look at it. We're currently doing FlowChat, flowchat.com, almost a few years into the project now. Whether we actually end up exiting it partial or full at some point, from the very beginning, all three co-founders are like, we're building and we're going to exit this company. Meaning we wanted to build a sellable company. We wanted to build an asset. It's kind of like, Alan, maybe you're like this. Like, if you're going to have someone over to the house, for like dinner Friday night or something, do you just leave it how it is, or maybe do you kind of like pick it up a little bit before you come over? They come over, right?
Exactly.
When someone's coming over and like other people are going to be in your business, you're like, oh, let me kind of spruce at least a little bit, like. I think that when I hear you talk about the numbers, that's what goes through me, and I'm like, you know what? How do we just like access that and always live in that, whether we're actually going to do it? So anyone listening, watching, I would encourage that. I would encourage you to pretend like you're going to sell the business next month. From a number standpoint, like have things clear. I'm kind of mixing bank accounts. Like just knock it off. It only hurts
Right.
you. It only hurts you. Just don't do it. Just don't cross the line. So anyway, that's number three. I'm off my soapbox now. Alan, wrap us up with number four.
So number four is finding the right buyer. So I like that you said that you and your two co-founders, you guys decided that you are going to build a sellable company. If you decide that from the very beginning, then how you operate is very clear because you know that you're going in the same direction. Now, if you're just coming across us talking today and you're like, okay, well, I'm thinking about selling my business, but I have no idea how to find the right buyer, you can go to, now this is me talking about my competition and so be it, you can go to a standard business broker and they will fill you with all these dreams about you being able to sell your business for the valuation they give it, which is often inflated, and they'll tell you that they can help you find a buyer, and they might, but they'll take your money up front and say, okay, well, if we find a buyer, great, but if we don't, this is our money. So in speaking to that, that's not the way that I do business. The way that I tell people is this: I'm like, okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to find out what the value of your business is. Then we're going to take you through a process to make sure that your business is truly qualified so that you can sell it. Now, this is step four of finding the right buyer. If you come across the right advisor, then it's very easy for you to find the right buyer. I am not a business broker. I am a certified exit planning advisor as well
Mm.
as an M&A advisor. Now, that's different than a business broker because a business broker doesn't do this whole qualification process. They're in the churn and burn business, right? So you go to them, and here's the biggest part about this. I'm going to segue a bit. I think it's about 93% of most business brokerages fees come from listing fees, not success fees, which
Ooh,
tells
bummer.
you how they make their money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right? So of course now, of course, if you're going to work with me or my colleagues, you're going to pay us our retainer, and we're going to work with you, and we'll probably take some equity as we build you towards an exit, and that's fine because we're a partner. But as we get to the point where you're ready to exit, assuming you work with me or my colleagues for 3 years, who is the first person you're going to come to sell the business if we've been advising you for the last 3 years? It's very, very obvious, right? So that's what I mean about finding the right buyer.
Not all money is created equal. I've learned this. Private
Exactly.
equity versus venture capital versus angel investor. There's, yeah, like you're saying, there's family office, different partnerships that can be formed. Yeah, knowing your buyer, knowing your market. What do you think about, like, in these exits that you're providing? How often is the buyer of the business in the same industry versus a different industry? What trend have you seen?
I would say it's probably 50-50. You've got some people that are high net worth individuals that are coming out of a high paying job. They're 45, 50 years old, and they're not ready to get out of the game, but they don't want another job. They want to buy a business, meaning they don't want to start
Mm,
working in another business and be the employee. So those people typically won't be in the same industry. If you got somebody
mm.
who was a sales guy and he's got, a ton of cash because he's been in sales the past 30 years, then he's probably going to come in and buy your business. But because he has this horizontal skill set, he'll be able to serve as the visionary and probably the head sales guy to help you take the business to the next level. So he may not be in your industry, but he has a horizontal skill set. So that's the first example. The other example is someone that has already bought a bunch of businesses. Let's just say electrical. He's bought like 5 different electrical businesses, and you happen to have an electrical business. Well, the obvious and natural thing for him is like, okay, well, I'm going to buy another electrical business to bolt on to these existing electrical businesses to make them bigger, so that I can then exit to PE. So that's what's called
Uh,
a roll up. Right. So let's just say, and I'm using electrical because everybody understands that, right? So if I bought my first electrical business and it was a $5 million company, because that makes it easier to fund. The bigger the company, the more likely the deal is to get done. If you got this little itty bitty company, you're not going to find as many buyers for that. I don't want to segue too much, but let's go back to the roll up. Let's just say I'll use myself as an example. I bought a $5 million electrical company in year one. I bought a $3 million electrical company in year two. Now, you would think that the five and the three is going to equal the eight. It's probably going to be more like 10 or 12 because of the cross selling and the synergy.
mm,
So just because I bought another business, I didn't add, I multiplied. That's the
mm.
difference. So another one of my colleagues, he says, we're not into plus, and we're not into T's, we're into X's, right? So we don't care about plus, we care about multiplying. So I'll go back into the electrical thing again. So year one, I bought a $5 million electrical. Year two, I bought a $3 million electrical. Now it's worth 12 million. Now I keep doing that for year after year after year. I now have this large business where the revenue initially will probably equal up to about 30,000, but the valuation of a larger company gives you a bigger multiple. So this company that's $50 million in revenue, that multiple is not a three multiple that probably is what you would have got on the $5 million company initially.
Yeah,
It's
cool.
now a 10 or 15 or 20x multiple because it's so big, right? So that's what happens with that. I know I kind of segued a little bit, but that's the way I wanted to explain what a roll up is. Now you get it that large, and you sell it out to PE because now they're like, okay, you got this huge electrical business. You probably don't want to run it anymore. You've been doing this for 10 years. You put all these companies together. Let us buy it from you and bolt it into GE or Con Edison or whatever the other electrical companies are nowadays.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm glad you got into the roll up strategy. I think it's good for everyone to know that things escalate, like the multiples change. It's the X, not the plus. So
Mhm.
I mean, that's part of what I learned in the first X. I was like, oh, if I was at this level, but dang it, like if I just increased MRR by this much, my multiple would have went up even. I'm like, Ah, man. So like these are things that you're describing that I wish I would have known earlier, because it takes a tremendous amount of effort, Alan, to start a company from scratch. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'll ever do it again. This is the fourth one in the last 7 years, and it's really exhausting. There's a lot of opportunity cost to continuing to start over. And so understanding that, oh man, like I shouldn't just be looking at the cash flow that's created in the business. I should be looking at the business itself and understanding the
Yes.
value of the greatest asset that I actually am building beyond my home, beyond anything else. Like this is the greatest asset, and it's probably the most time consuming for most business owners as well. So the role was cool. Hey, before we wrap up the convo, I feel like I'd be doing the audience a disservice if I didn't get into like seller financing and what it even looks like to buy companies. There might be some other people, business owners thinking like, can I just go buy my competitor? Like you could double your company overnight by just going and buying a competitor. Maybe that's the right, you have good cash and you just want to buy the market and buy their email list and buy all their clients and buy all their good employees. And someone might be interested in that, but they're like, that'd be way too expensive. Like, how would you approach that conversation?
Right. So it's not necessarily easy to do seller financing, but if you understand consultative sales and you're willing to listen to people, it's very likely that you'll be able to get maybe not 100% seller financing, but at least, 30 to 50% seller financing. So seller financing, for those that don't know what it is, it's basically when the business becomes the bank. So let's just say I'm going to buy FlowChat and I'm going to buy it for a super low valuation of only $1 million, right? I say, okay, let me buy your business. It's $1 million, but the way that I'm going to pay you your $1 million is we're going to stretch that out over 10 years. So I'll pay you 100 grand a year for 10 years, and I now own your business. That's the example of what seller financing is. Now, of course, there's no way in the world FlowChat would do that, but that is the idea of behind seller financing. That's what it is. Now, if you're going to go out and let's just say we'll use electrical because again, that's where we were. If you're going to go out and say, okay, I own an electrical company, I want to buy another electrical company, maybe this person will be willing to do seller financing. Now, a person is likely to do seller financing if you are in the same industry because
Mm.
your peers, your colleagues, right? So they're like, okay, this person understands my business, already has a business like mine. I don't think he's going to default on the seller financing. He's going to pay me what he owes me or whatever, and I'm fine with that. That's one way to do it. Another way is if you are not in the same industry, the only other way to really make that happen is to have really great rapport with someone. So again, I'm using the electrical company. So I
Yeah.
don't own any electrical companies. I have no background in it. But if I'm going to go and talk to a guy about buying his electrical company, the way that I would approach the conversation is I would talk to him about the vision that I have for his baby, right? Because most of these guys that own electrical companies have owned them 10, 15, 20, 30 years, right? So I'm going to say, okay, well, Mr. Seller, you have this electrical company. I don't have any experience in electrical companies, but I do have an experience in marketing, operation, and sales, which are things that you don't have any experience in. So I'm going to be able to take your company, keep the same name of your company, which tells him that you're going to be, about his legacy, and I'm going to grow the business in the next 5 years by 2 or 3x. And because I did that, Mr. Seller, I'm not only going to pay you your seller financing because it's $1 million, I'll pay you 100 grand over the next 10 years. I'm also going to allow you to retain some equity in this business so that as I grow, your quarterly distributions go up for the next 10 years. And not only that, Mr. Seller, I've got 3 or 4 of my partners that have a lot of electrical experience. I'm just basically the mouthpiece talking to you because I'm the sales guy and these guys aren't. But I've got these 4 people. They're my partners in this deal. We're all going to come in together. I got the marketing, the ops, the sales. These guys have the licenses in the background. And we are going to crush it for your business. And we're going to pay you more than what we're actually going to buy it for today because of this whole you get to retain equity thing. That is very likely to work. Very likely to work.
Yeah. Got it. So that's roughly what the conversation looks like, sounds like. And, as I've looked more into just different things I've never paid attention to, like business credit and, different credit versus debt versus seller financing. It's just the financial bucket. I was like, wow, there's really a lot more options and availability that's doable that I was normally I just never thinking about. Like I started in commission only sales, B2B commission only sales. Like you always have to create something from nothing. You always have to, hunt and find value, serve people, listen, and follow up and follow through. And so that's the move that I have, and we'll keep that one going. But there's other skills that really help with scale, like you're describing. So anyway, Allen, for everyone listening, watching, leaning into this, where I know we have the domain at the bottom there. Where's the best place to find you?
I am very active on both Facebook and LinkedIn, so I'd rather you probably come to Facebook than LinkedIn, but you can come to both. Excuse me. My handle on both platforms is Allen T. Gregory. So if you go to ALLEN T. Gregory, you'll be able to find me on Facebook or LinkedIn.
Okay, those. And I know we put walkawaywealthy.net for everyone. If you guys want, this is what it looks like. And I believe you mentioned you just like there's other events that you have running, and yeah, if you could tell everyone, share that with everyone.
Yeah, so the way that I'm going about this is because you guys know that I talk so bad about brokers. I don't like to go to brokers. I like to go direct to seller, right? So if you're interested in potentially selling your business or learning more about that, I do a lot of different things. I got a Facebook community. I'm doing public speaking, whether someone invites me to their own stage or I create my own. Sometime later this year, I'm going to do a mansion party. We're going to have a mastermind mansion party later this year for people that are truly serious about selling their business. I'll bring in my other investors. We'll hang out for 3 days, have a ton of fun. And if you want, you'll have two options at this mansion party. This is the best thing about what I'm doing. I love this. I keep talking about this because I can't wait till we can do it. You're going to come to the mansion party. You're going to have two outcomes. One of two outcomes. One is if you're truly ready and qualified to sell your business, one of my five people that are going to be sitting on the board to potentially buy your business will be able to acquire your business. That's number. The other part is if you want to grow your business but you're not ready to sell it but you want help from one of these five investors sitting on this board, then they'll be able to come into your business and consult in exchange for equity to help you grow it. That's coming. It's not there yet, but if you go to walkawaywealthy.net and you put your email in there, I will invite you, or at least make sure that you know more about it as it comes together.
You're on the list. You're in the cool club. Yep. So appreciate you
There you
putting
go.
this together. You can share your information with Mr. Allen in exchange. You'll be on that list for those events that he's mentioning. So awesome. Well, Allen, I appreciate you coming out and sharing with our audience today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Hey, and I appreciate you guys for your time, your attention. We're talking to real entrepreneurs that are getting real results today. We got to get into M&A, mergers and acquisitions. You can be mindful of the value that you're working so hard to create within your own business. I know there's someone that will watch this that was like me years ago, where I'm like, I didn't even realize the value of my company and how important that is. And lastly, for people that are further into their journey, they can realize, oh shoot, like what if I just go and acquire more companies? I can just go acquire the market I'm working so hard to earn. And there can, with the right financial structure, I mean, you can go a lot faster for a lot less. So I don't know. I love geeking out on this stuff, and we're gonna keep bringing the heat, bringing some more of it your way. So appreciate y'all. We'll see you on the next one.